The rain was coming down in sheets, a relentless drumming against the roof of my car that was starting to get on my nerves. It had been like this for hours, ever since I'd turned off the main highway onto these winding back roads. My GPS, bless its digital heart, insisted this was the fastest route. Now, I wasn't so sure. Thick, soupy fog was rolling in, swallowing the road ahead. My headlights barely cut through the gloom, reflecting back at me in a hazy, disorienting glare. I squinted, leaning forward over the steering wheel, trying to make out the faded white lines on the asphalt. It felt like driving into a void. The voice from the GPS chirped, "In 200 feet, turn right onto Raven Street." I sighed in relief. Finally, a street name, a sign of civilization. Maybe I wasn't completely lost in some forgotten corner of the world after all. I slowed down, peering into the swirling mist. Sure enough, a rickety wooden sign, barely legible, marked the turn. Raven Street. The name sent a little shiver down my spine, but at this point, I'd have taken a turn onto Elm Street if it meant getting out of this storm. The car bumped onto a narrow, unpaved lane. Trees with gnarled, skeletal branches loomed on either side, their dark forms appearing and disappearing in the fog like phantoms. The GPS screen flickered and then went blank. "Recalculating," it announced before falling silent. Great, just great. No signal, I was officially on my own. My heart started to pound a little faster. Driving blind in a storm on a street named after a bird of ill omen with no idea where I was going. This was straight out of a horror movie. I considered turning back, but the lane was so narrow I wasn't sure I could without getting stuck in the mud. So I did the only thing I could do. I kept going forward slowly, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. After what felt like an eternity of crawling through the oppressive fog, a faint light pricked the darkness. It was weak, and it flickered like a candle flame struggling against a draft. Hope surged through me. A house, someone was home? I could ask for directions, maybe even wait out the worst of the storm with a warm cup of coffee. As I got closer, the silhouette of a large old house materialized from the mist. It was a classic Victorian, the kind with a steep gabled roof, a wraparound porch, and intricate wooden trim. It looked a bit rundown, with peeling paint and what looked like overgrown ivy clinging to its walls, but that flickering light in an upstairs window was the most welcoming sight I'd seen all night. I pulled my car as far onto the muddy shoulder as I dared and killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost as deafening as the rain had been. All I could hear was the gentle patter of raindrops on the roof and the thumping of my own heart. I stared at the house. The light was coming from a small circular window in the attic. It continued its unsteady dance, casting long, wavering shadows across the front of the building. It was eerie, but the thought of spending the night in my car was even less appealing. I took a deep breath, grabbed my jacket, and stepped out into the cold, damp air. The path leading to the front porch was made of cracked flagstones, slick with rain and moss. I picked my way carefully, my shoes squelching in the mud. As I reached the porch steps, I glanced up at the attic window again, and that's when I saw her. A figure was standing there, silhouetted against the flickering light. It was a woman. I couldn't make out her features clearly, but I could see the distinct shape of her head and shoulders. She was looking down at me, and then she raised her hand and waved. It wasn't a frantic, help me kind of wave. It was slow, deliberate, a welcome. A strange sense of calm washed over me, chasing away the fear. She knew I was here. She was expecting me. I smiled back, even though she probably couldn't see it, and walked up to the heavy oak door. There was no doorbell, just a large, ornate brass knocker in the shape of a raven. Fitting, I lifted it and let it fall. The sound echoed with a loud, hollow thud that seemed to be swallowed by the house itself. I waited and waited. The only sound was the rain and the wind whistling through the eaves. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. The light in the attic window continued to flicker, but the woman was gone. A feeling of unease began to creep back in. Maybe she was old or hard of hearing. Maybe she was making her way down the stairs. I tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. Slowly, cautiously, I pushed the door open. It swung inward with a low, drawn-out creak that echoed through the cavernous space beyond. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and weak. Is anyone home? My car's out of gas and my phone is dead. I just need a little help. The air inside was cold and musty, thick with the smell of dust and decay. It smelled abandoned. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I could see a grand foyer with a sweeping staircase. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust. Cobwebs hung like tattered lace from the ceiling and draped over furniture that was shrouded in white sheets, like pale ghosts in the dim light. This place hadn't been lived in for years. But what about the light? And the woman in the window? I took a hesitant step inside, the door creaking shut behind me. Hello? I called again, louder this time. Only silence answered. I pulled out my phone, hoping for a miracle, and used its flashlight to cut through the darkness. The beam swept across the room, revealing portraits on the wall with eyes that seemed to follow me, and a grandfather clock that had stopped long ago. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was all wrong. I turned back to the door, but a sound from upstairs stopped me dead in my tracks. A floorboard creaked. It was the slow, deliberate sound of a single footstep, then another. Someone was up there. Who's there? I shouted, my voice trembling. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I stood frozen, my flashlight beam pointed up the grand staircase, waiting, listening. Was it the woman? Had she been up there all along? Then I heard it again, a faint, soft sound. It sounded like humming, a gentle, melodic tune drifting down from the upper floor. It was a lullaby, the kind a mother would sing to her child. It was both beautiful and terrifyingly out of place in this derelict house. Against my better judgment, I started up the stairs, my hand gripping the dusty banister. Each step groaned in protest under my weight. The humming grew louder as I ascended, leading me towards the second floor. It was coming from the end of the hallway. I followed the sound, my light dancing nervously ahead of me until I stood before a closed door. The humming was coming from inside. I reached out, my hand shaking, and turned the knob. The door swung open to reveal a child's bedroom. A rocking horse stood frozen in mid-gallop. A doll with a cracked porcelain face lay on the floor, and a small bed was neatly made in the corner. But the room was empty, and the humming had stopped. The air grew intensely cold. I backed away slowly, my mind screaming at me to run. This house was playing tricks on me. As I turned, I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, a door was slightly ajar, the attic door. And from beneath it, I could see a faint, flickering light. That was it. I didn't wait to see if the woman would wave again. I turned and fled. I scrambled down the stairs, not caring how much noise I made. I fumbled with the front door, my fingers clumsy with panic, and burst back out into the rainy night. I didn't even bother closing the door behind me. I sprinted to my car, jumped in, and locked the doors. I jammed the key in the ignition and prayed. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared to life. I slammed the car into reverse, tires spinning in the mud, and sped away from that house as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I drove for what felt like miles, my adrenaline finally starting to fade, replaced by a deep, bone-chilling dread. Eventually, the fog began to lift, and I saw the blessed glow of streetlights in the distance. I'd found a small town. The first building I saw was the sheriff's office. I screeched to a halt in front of it and ran inside, nearly collapsing onto the front desk. An older, tired-looking sheriff looked up from his paperwork, his eyebrows raised in surprise. I gasped for breath, the words tumbling out of me in a frantic, jumbled mess. I told him everything: the fog, the GPS, Raven Street, the old house, the light, the woman in the window. He listened patiently, his expression unchanging. When I finally finished, he took a slow sip of his coffee and looked at me with a weary, knowing sadness in his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, which squeaked in protest. "Son," he said, his voice low and gravelly, "there's no house on Raven Street." "Not anymore," he paused, letting his words sink in. "The last house on that street, the old Miller place, it burned to the ground 20 years ago. Took the whole family with it, Mrs. Miller and her little girl. They say she was waving from the attic window right before the roof collapsed." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chills.